Hi, morning guys and girls. Hello. Hi, welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast. This is episode 11. That's incredible. Today's date is Sunday the 24th of May. I'm actually filming a day early this week because you'll see why later. But, basically, I may as well explain now. I'm leaving for Dubai today. I'm heading over to Dubai this evening, and I'm not entirely sure how easy it's going to be for me to be able to podcast while I'm over there. I'm staying with a friend of mine who's got 3 young kids, so I'm not sure of how I'm going to be able to fit that in around them. I'm sure I'll be fine. I'm sure I will be able to. It'll be more a case of just because I wasn't exactly sure when, and tomorrow I'm going to be quite busy. I have quite a few things to do, so I wouldn't get around to doing it then. First off, places where you can find me. You can find me on Ravelry as Mina86. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip. You can find me on YouTube as Knitting Expat. You can find the show notes for the podcast on knittingexpat.wordpress.com, and you can find the Ravelry group as the Knitting Expat Podcast on Ravelry. So come on and join us over there if you haven't already joined the group. It's a really fun, friendly group, and I would love to have you over there. And I just want to say thank you to all new and returning viewers. It's great to have you here, and thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and spend a few moments with me. Although I realise some of my episodes lately have taken quite a while to get through. So I apologise for those of you who are not fans of the longer podcasts. I just can't seem to get mine down to much less than what they have been lately because of all the yarning goodness I have to share. But I think what I'm going to try and do is keep the acquisitions to the latter half of the show, so if you're not interested in those, you don't have to watch. I just wanted to say I've been so overwhelmed by the kindness, generosity, support, just so much loveliness in this knitting community, and I've just loved every minute of it and getting involved and stuff. It's just been incredible. Just 1 second, I think there's a little fluffy here who wants to say hello. Excuse the reaching. Here we go, it's Hugo. I realised neither of the cats were at all in the shot last week. They weren't hanging around. Hugo's going to say hello, haven't you? Hey? Yeah. Little sniff. Cuddle. Okay. I've got quite a few thank yous to get through this week, so get through those quickly. First of all, thank you to Heidi of the Undead Yarn podcast. Thank you so much for the lovely mention in your last episode. It was so sweet. And to Maria of the Stitched in Sweden podcast. Thank you again for the lovely comments and stuff, and I'm so happy you loved your bag. Maria and I did a swap while I was back in the UK, and I showed what I got from her in my last week's episode. And also to Danny of Little Bobbins, thank you again so much for being so sweet about the podcast, and again, I'm so excited that you loved your bag and the goodies and all that jazz. And I'll be showing what Danny sent me later in this episode. Hey. Someone's trying to take a little bite out of me. It doesn't actually hurt, he's just being playful. And also to Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast and of Vullenvine Yarns. I can never say that properly. It's such lovely things to say, and it was so sweet of you. It was so lovely. I've loved your podcast for a long time, and it was so sweet to hear you say such lovely things. And just good luck with settling in. I know moving is tough, and with construction and stuff, it's just never easy. So I hope it all settles down soon enough. And if you haven't checked these podcasts out, you definitely should. So there's Heidi of the Undead Yarn, Maria of Stitched in Sweden, Danny of Little Bobbins, and Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast. And finally, also I want to talk about Tanya Marie of the Sampler Girl podcast. She's also Busy Mama on Instagram, and she was so sweet about me. She was so sweet about me in the podcast, and she was she was actually, I don't think she knows this, but she was actually the first person to reach out to me and send me a message on Ravelry after I put up my first episode. So that really meant a lot to me, and yeah, so thank you so much for the support from the very beginning. Your mum was so sweet when I met her, and she's so just amazing, so full of energy, and it was just so much fun to get to hang out with her. And I know you said in your last podcast you weren't sure if we were ever likely to meet at some point, but I think you might be surprised, and we may potentially have an opportunity to meet later this year. My husband and I are currently trying to figure out plans to be in the now I'm covered in cat fluff, to visit the States later this year around autumn time. Definitely be New York type area, so I'll let you know if I'm ever in your neck of the woods. I might be able to have a little catch up. And I also meant to mention this last week, but I got a bit distracted by other things. But just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for all your lovely comments about the podcast, about my hair, about my haircut, and especially after that episode I did with my brother. A lot of you found my brother's little stint on the podcast rather hilarious, and to be honest, it was quite funny for me too. But right, I'm going to do a very quick week in review because it actually leads on to the next section for me. First of all, it's been a bit of a rough week. It's nothing particularly bad has happened, it's just been a bit tough. We got back from London pretty much exactly a week ago today. We got back last Sunday in the evening, and so yeah, now less than a week later, well, about a week later, I'm really packing to leave again, which I'm not exactly fond of that, but hey ho. Perry was in Saudi for most of last week. He didn't actually come home for 2 of the nights, I think. Yeah, basically whilst we were away, some people, let's just say, don't know why, decided they were going to try and smuggle explosives over the causeway into Saudi Arabia from Bahrain, and that has caused a lot of border issues. They've added extra security and stuff, so it's basically doubled his journey time each way. So his company have kindly put him up in a hotel for a couple of nights last week to save him the journey, and it just meant that he was less tired for work, and I was also less worried about him driving late at night and being tired and being stuck in the car for hours. And then on top of all that, a couple of days ago we heard that there was IS, Islamic State, had bombed a mosque in the eastern province in Saudi Arabia. And it's not exactly where Perry is, but it's not too far off from where he is. But thankfully it's not affecting him too badly. It's not affecting his work or anything. So, I mean, it's far away enough. It's still a couple of hours from where he works. But yeah, no, we're not really been too affected over here by any of that. It doesn't seem to have spilled over, thankfully. And also, the eastern province of Saudi Arabia is quite large. It's about a third of the country, so it's a very large area when you look at it on a map. And I had a few people message me on Ravelry concerned about our safety and how if we were being affected by any of this. So I just thought I'd put it out there. We're fine. It's not affecting us or our lives directly. Obviously we're keeping an eye on it on the news and stuff, but I don't expect it's gonna come over here or anything. It's not the sort of thing that's gonna we're not the targets of these sorts of attacks, so it's not likely to spill over, I don't think. I think at the moment most of the issues are around Yemen, and we're quite far away from Yemen, so we're safe in that regards. I also went shopping for an abaya this week on the topic of Saudi Arabia. I mentioned last week that at some point I'm going to have to go over to Saudi Arabia to sort out my residency visa. So my trip to Dubai is actually the first part of that. I need to go to Dubai to sort out getting an entry visa, basically a visit visa, because that was my last place of residence. I have to do it from there, which suits me fine. And but I went and bought an abaya because I wasn't sure how soon after I get back I was going to be going to Saudi Arabia. You can see it hanging up there behind me. It's basically just a long black gown, as it were. It's quite billowy and quite airy and nice, and my biggest issue was going to be finding something that was going to be long enough, because with an abaya it has to cover your arms completely and it has to cover your legs. I mean, some people say it doesn't have to be down to the floor, but you know what? Why attract unnecessary attention? I had someone asking me on Instagram if I was going to, she used to live in Bahrain and has done the trip to Saudi herself before and stuff, and she was asking me if I was going to cover my hair. Now, my theory with all of these things, and it's the same thing that I do when I go to Iran, I'm like, you know what, I mean, in Iran you have to cover your hair, there's no option there, but in Saudi Arabia they say that foreigners don't have to cover their hair necessarily, but the women would have to wear the abaya. But like I said, my theory with all of these is, I think I mentioned it in one of my earlier episodes, is just, you know, respect the culture where you are. You know, you shouldn't expect others to conform to what your cultural beliefs are from where you're from when you're visiting other countries. But also, especially when you're going to countries like Saudi Arabia or Iran, where, you know, the police are quite well known for being quite hard on people who don't conform to their rules, as it were. Why do something that's going to potentially cause you more trouble than it's worth? I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things, covering up and not showing my hair is not as big a deal than ending up in jail for not doing it. So yes, I will be covering up my hair, because if for no other reason than the fact that I look very much like a Saudi person when I'm dressed in an abaya, that I could quite easily be mistaken for a local. And then, you know what, I don't want to have to go through the hassle of trying to prove that I'm not a local and trying to have that argument with someone who may not want to listen to what I have to say. So yes, I will be covering up my hair, and I'll be wearing the abaya the entire time, very strictly, and I'm going to be a good visitor to Saudi Arabia when I go. Because like I said, I mean, I'm the same when I go to Iran. I make sure I cover my hair and I make sure I wear appropriate clothing for when I'm there, and I just, you know, I don't want to attract unnecessary attention. You do what you do. You do what you have to do when you go to these places to have an enjoyable time. That's my 2 cents on it, really. On to other things. Had a bit of a nightmare this week with the cats. Well, it's not really a nightmare, it's just a bit gross and yucky for me because I don't like dealing with it. But one of the things we've had to get used to since living in a house rather than an apartment is bugs. Bugs and insects and creepy crawlies and stuff that I don't really deal well with. I mean, I'm not scared of them per se, I just don't like to be around them. So the other day I noticed that the boys were kind of just slinking around and being all kind of like stalkery, and they're like hunting mode, as it were. I followed them into the kitchen, and then that's where I saw it. They were hunting this it's quite big cockroach, bug, beetle thing. I have no idea what it was. It was disgusting. And they were just sort of like batting at it and playing with it, and it was like, ew. So I got them out. They'd managed to flip it onto its back, so this thing wasn't going anywhere fast. I got them out the kitchen, and then probably got on the phone to Perry, be like, what do I do? How do I get rid of it? Kind of freaking out. I knew what I had to do, you know, glass, paper, throw it out the door kind of thing. But in the moment, I was just like, oh, don't want to deal with this. Anyway, dealt with it. All was fine. He survived, but outside. And yeah, anyway, so I did have a bit of a nightmare this week with Dubai police. As part of my visa process thing that I have to do, I have to get sort of like a police record check, and I have to get a certificate from the Dubai police to say that I have no criminal record, which should be really simple. It should be a case of just filling in a form online, paying the fee, and it gets emailed to me. The online website wasn't working. I spent about 3 hours being put on hold, being passed around the office, passed around from person to person. No one wanted to deal with me. No one knew what to do about it either. Anyway, and then I tried doing it through the app that they've got. Anyway, it got to the end of the day, and I was literally about to pull my hair out of exasperation. Nothing was working. I wasn't getting anywhere. People said they would call me back and no one ever did. And it was just a lot of frustration. So out of that frustration, I pulled out some yarn and some needles and projects, and I was like, right, I'm gonna have a cast on party to make myself feel better. I don't usually do cast on parties because, like I've mentioned before, I'm generally much more of a 3 project limit kind of person. And I already had one on the needles and one I had to finish up. So I cast on 4 new projects. Anyway, I posted this to Instagram that I was going to have a cast on party to help myself feel better. And a bunch of you joined in, so that was so much fun. I hadn't anticipated that happening, but it was when I put that up there. But it was a lot of fun to have all you guys join in, and it made me feel a lot better. So by the end of the night, I had 4 new projects cast on. And by the next morning, I got the email with my police record clearance certificate, and apparently it all went through at some point, just no one knew what they were doing. Anyway, so that's good. That's all that. And now, finally, after 15 minutes, we're on to the knitting. Right, so I'm going to start with the FOs. First up is my basket here next to me. First up is the ponchette for my mum. I can't for the life of me remember who the designer of this is, but I will link it in the show notes. So sorry about that. So I finally seamed it up, and I seam using the mattress stitch. I've had a few people asking me about my finishing techniques. And it works out pretty well. There is slight puckering, but that will come out. I need to steam it. I haven't steamed it with the iron after. But actually when you wear it, it doesn't show the puckers at all. You only seem to see it when it's sort of like this, very slightly. But this is how it looks. And yeah, and I finished taking pictures of it yesterday, so there are photos of this on my projects page. So there's that. Yeah, and that was knit out of Drops Baby Alpaca Silk in the medium grey and red colourways. And I believe for the month of May, Drops yarn is on sale online on Love Knitting and Wool Warehouse, and I think other places, but I know definitely those 2 places. I held it double, which makes it much thicker and squishier and more drapey. I mean, the silk makes it drapey, but it's definitely going to be very warm for my mum. And so yeah, I doubled the yarn. I knit it on 3.75mm needles, and I did 23 of these points, which I think is what the pattern called for. And that used up 820 meters of yarn, doubled. So 1,640 actual meters. But physical knitting was only 820 because the yarn was doubled. So that's that. That's the ponchette. My second FO are my Rose City roller socks. And they're in my Sock Monkey sock bag, made by my friend Mel, who I met in London. So if you'd seen my pictures on Instagram from I Knit Fandango, you'll have seen pictures of Mel. And she made this cute little bag for me. So these are the socks. There's 2 there. And they've got the rolled cuff. And I did a heel flap and gusset decreases, and I even kitchenered the toe. And I actually did, the pattern comes with 2 toe options, a rounded toe and a square toe, and I did the rounded toe because I hadn't done that before. These socks these socks are a lot of firsts for me. So this is my first pair of top-down socks, 2 at a time. This is my first pair of socks with a proper heel flap, slip stitch heel flap and gusset decreases. My first rounded toe, my first Kitchener. Lots of firsts with these socks. I really enjoyed the experience. The pattern is lovely. The pattern is by Mara Catherine Briner, and it's the Rose City Rollers. I saw these on Instagram and I was like, yeah, I'm knitting me a pair of these. And Mara's Instagram is Orange Knits, at Orange Knits. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's a really easy pattern to follow. I think I may have found my perfect stitch number now, having used it through this pattern. I made 1 slight modification to the pattern and that's it, but I'll explain that in a second. The yarn is get it out. It's Serda Heart and Soul in the Move to the, it doesn't actually have it on here. It says shade number 104, but I know it's called Move to the Groove because someone on Instagram told me. I believe it was Suffolk Socks, who I met at I Knit Fandango. So yes, Heart and Soul, Serda. It's quite a rough sock yarn, like it's not particularly soft at all, but I guess it's similar to like a Regia or something where it just feels like a really sturdy sock yarn. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon mix, and I knit these on 2.25mm needles, and I did actually have quite a bit still left over from, I wound off 2 30-gram balls to knit the socks out of, and so I had about 40 something grams left, but there's still quite a bit left over, almost 2 stripes worth left over. So I weighed my socks after. They weigh 51 grams, and I knit the large size with 72 stitches cast on, and I wear a UK size 8, which I believe is a US 10 size shoe, so I have big feet, and this took exactly half a skein. Which makes me feel much more confident about the idea of knitting top-down socks without running out of yarn, because I know that's always been one of my concerns. So yes, like I said, I found that with this, the 72 stitch cast on was perfect for around the ankle. And then after I did the gusset decreases, I knit for another inch, and then I did 4 sets of decreases. But I decreased 2 stitches at a time. So I decreased 2 on the instep, then I knit 3 rounds, then I decreased 2 on the sole, knit 3 rounds, decreased 2 on the instep, knit 3 rounds, and decreased 2 on the sole, knit, and then carried on knitting until I got to the toe. So it actually got me down to 64 stitches by the time I started the toe. And I find that fits me perfectly, because I definitely need more room around this area than I do around my toes. So around the bottom of my feet, I need a bit more of a fitted fit, because I do have, not fatter, but I do have bigger ankle areas. It's not so much that I have a high instep, but I have bigger ankles, especially on my left foot. With the break, I've got quite a bit of residual swelling, and over the years I've sprained my leg so many times growing up that I have almost semi-permanently swollen ankles now. So yeah, I'm starting to get there. I've not really been knitting socks for that long. I knit my first pair of socks in December last year, so I think I've done maybe, how many pairs now? I'm definitely getting close to 10, if not having hit 10. I think I've done about 9 now so far. So I'm not overly experienced with sock knitting, and I'm still trying to find my magic numbers, as it were. I want to try the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern, and I've actually got that printed off in my up and coming, but I'll get to that later. I really want to try the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern at some point soon. I want to try the Fish Lips Kiss Heel again, now that I found my number, I think. I do enjoy the Fish Lips Kiss Heel. It's very easy, it's easy to memorize, and it's fun, it's quick. I love doing it. You've got no issues. You've got to have that gusset decreases and stuff to deal with, which not a big deal, but it is something. And I just think the issue I've been having is with the fit afterwards. Like with the Persian carpet socks, it fits fine, but I do find it still slides, the heel slides under my foot when I'm wearing them. So and my other 2 Fish Lips Kiss Heel socks that I've made are actually, the socks themselves have grown since I've made them, and they're now a bit looser. They're more like house socks, which are fine, but I can't really judge the heel based on those, because the socks overall are quite big. But yeah, so I still need to do a bit more experimenting to find my perfect sock formula, and whether that's top down, heel flap and gusset, or toe up, or what, I'm not entirely sure yet, but I want to experiment more. My other question for you guys, and I've already had a few people answer this on Instagram when I asked it, but if you knit 2 at a time, cuff down socks, how do you do your gusset decreases, the picking up of the stitches and the decreases? Do you separate the socks and do them one at a time and then put them back on the same cable for magic looping, or are you able to do them both at the same time on the socks? Because I tried and I just could not figure out how I was going to be able to get all those stitches from the gusset decreases and the heel stitches onto the same side with both socks. Does that make sense? I think the general consensus is that you have to separate them, so which is fine. Like, I don't mind doing that. I'm just curious if there is another way of doing it and I just don't know about it. So if there is, let me know. And my third and final FO is one of my own designs, which I showed you 2 episodes back, the child size version, which ended up being way too small and I had to reknit it, and then I couldn't show it to you last week because I had to leave it in London for the recipient. And I'm naming this the Cables for Lara hat. This is the adult size. And I'm calling it Cables for Lara because Lara's the little girl I made the hat for. And I thought it was appropriate to name it after. And I want to put this on my head, so apologies in advance if I have ridiculous hat head afterwards or frizzy hair as a result. So as you can see, this fits over my curls nicely, fits on my head comfortably, and there's still quite a bit of room. It's not overly baggy, but it's not tight either. So this will fit most adult heads. Like, I have quite a big head. My husband has quite a large head and it fits his head fine. So, and obviously because it's quite stretchy, it will fit most, like for most like older children upwards. I measured Lara's head when I met her, and her head for a 3-year-old is only maybe 2 inches smaller than my head. So whilst there is a child size in the pattern that I've written up, I would say that it probably would only fit a rather small child up to about the age of 3 or 4, depending on how large their head is, to be honest, because as I've realised, kids' heads aren't actually all that tiny. And because of the cables, this isn't the stretchiest of hat patterns. Like, when you look at the pattern, you see the number of stitches you cast on with a bulky, like chunky yarn, it's quite surprising. But because the cables actually pull it in quite a bit, although the pearl sections does give it a bit more of a ribbed effect. But like I said, it's a very comfy hat. I love this yarn. So this is Rico Creative Melange Chunky in the number 33 colorway, and I believe on Love Knitting this is given the rather creative name of Orange Green, which is what the yarn basically is. I do have quite a chunk left over. I have about 15 grams left over from, I've used 2 balls, so that's 100 grams, roughly 180 meters, and I still have 15 grams left over after having done the pom-pom as well. And what I really like about this yarn is that every ball is different, even within the same colorway. Like, you wouldn't actually notice, but up to about here is the first ball, and then the rest is the second ball, including the pom-pom. And there's no repeat of the colors. It's all the repeats. There doesn't seem to be any sort of real pattern to it. It's just a set of colors, and they just come up as and when, but they all work really well together. I have 1 more ball of this, so with this and that 1 more ball, I could probably do another child size. But yeah, so that's my hat pattern. I've written up the instructions. I just need to format it and tweak it and add pictures and stuff. So that hopefully will be ready for release very, very soon, probably in the next week or so. So yeah, moving on to whips. First up, I have a test knit that I'm doing for Chrissy Fletcher of the Stitch Together podcast. And this is her, let me find the first page. This is her boat trip cowl pattern. That's what it looks like. There's 2 variations. It's very pretty, very, very pretty. And when I saw she posted asking for testers, I immediately volunteered, because I was like, you know what? I like being able to support other knitters, and especially with Chrissy, she helped test my cowl pattern that I released, so I thought it's only only right that I can offer to help her test one of her patterns. And this is in my project bag that I made myself, which I really love. And this is being knit out of Malabrigo sock in the Velvet Grapes colorway, and that's what it looks like in the cake. I showed this to you in the skein last week. I love these colors. It's just all my favorite shades of purple in one place. Right, so you start by knitting it flat, and then once you get to a certain number of stitches, you join it together in the round and you start knitting the lace portion. So I've just got the pattern section now to do, which I'm really looking forward to. And it actually makes it a bit simpler because you're knitting the pattern all in the round. So it's all knits, obviously doing the pattern, the lace pattern, which is nice, not having to do much purling. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been really fun to work on so far. And I love Malabrigo sock. It's not the softest yarn to knit with, but I find once it's been washed and blocked, it's so lovely. And that's the one I knit. I knit my other Sunrays shawl pattern, the first one, out of Malabrigo sock as well, which I really like. Oh yeah, so I showed you what it looked like already. And that's being knit on 3.5mm needles. Then my next whip in my whip basket is another inner project bag that I made. This is my medium-sized bag. And this is my Filter in Daylight shawl, which is, I can find the front page. Sorry, I'm not very organised today. Which is by Suvi Simola on Ravelry. It's a paid for pattern, and it's beautiful lace panel in the middle. And I love the construction of this. It's a very interesting construction technique, and it's actually something I'd been thinking about for a shawl pattern that I had in mind. And it was quite funny because I'd been thinking about this before I even found this pattern, and then I found the pattern. I was like, ooh, beautiful. I wanted to give it a go. And so this is being knit out of Quince & Co. Chickadee in Frank's Plum and Frost, which is the purple and the sort of pale creamy white colour. I'll show you what those look like. So that's Frank's Plum. It's a nice sort of deep purple, and this is Frost. So this will be the border colour, and this will be the main body. And this is what my project currently looks like. Just open this up for you. You start on DP ends because you're starting knitting a small circle. I mean, you could start do it magic loop, but I've been wanting to, oh shit, why am I dropping stitches all day today? I've been wanting to practice more with DP ends. So I actually find when I need to start shawl patterns, center or circular shawl patterns, I like to start them on DP ends just so I can practice. I'm not very good with DP ends, to be honest. I can't stretch it out completely because I'll be dropping stitches, but that's what it currently looks like, ish. I'm really loving how it's knitting up. It's a very fun, easy pattern. Not easy, but I mean, it's interesting and fun, and it's not boring. The lace section is fun because it's all knit in the round. So again, like well, there is purling in the lace section, but it's not difficult, as it were. And the cute little Promise Keeper removable stitch marker, this little turtle that was given to me by Katrina, one of the lovely viewers that I met when I was in London. So that's perfect. I just move it up every few rows, and it just helps mark the beginning of the round for me, which is very helpful. And once I think I'm probably ready to transfer them actually to circular needles, and I'll be moving those onto high hires. So that'll be fun, because that'll be the first time I actually get to use my high hires. And I'll push it back. And my last work in progress is the biggie. My persistence is key in my ginormous sweater bag. And I can't for the life of me remember who designed this, and I've been working on it for so long now. It is by Amanda Woga on Instagram. And I'll show you the progress I've made so far. And I've made a bit of progress this last week, in fairness. I did take it out and work on it a little bit. So, I don't know how well you can see that. So the yellow markers are where I was last time I showed it to you, and I've basically done another stripe. And I figured it out. To get to the bottom ribbing, I need 6 stripes from the underarm. So I've done 1 stripe, which means I have 5 more stripes before the hem ribbing on the body. So I actually find with patterns, especially with larger patterns like sweaters and stuff, when I break down the pattern into smaller sections, it just feels much more achievable and much less daunting. So, because I'm striping this one, even though it's not a striped, the pattern isn't for striped. I just like striping. It's another easy way for me to keep track of where I am and how many more sections I have to go. So that's that. This probably won't be coming with me to Dubai. So it's another project that's going back on hold basically for a couple of weeks until I get back. It's a bit annoying for me because I've been working on this now since the 6th of April. It's probably the longest running project I've ever had. I've never had a project last this long. I think the reason being it's just I've been really busy. I've been traveling a lot and it's not exactly a travel friendly project. It's being knit on 4.5mm needles, I forgot to mention, and I'm knitting that in Karen Simply Soft and Karen 1 pound. Hugo's back. Yeah, I think the fact that it's not travel friendly and the fact that I've been doing a lot of traveling lately isn't helping that one finish anytime fast rather. So that's it for what's on my needles. What I have coming up is some socks for my friend Steph for her kids. So since I'm going to be over there, I can try them on them as I'm knitting them up. So I've printed up a couple of patterns. They're free patterns on Ravelry. One is Toe Up Toddler Socks by Sheila Stromberg, and one is Tube Socks for Kids by Jane Richmond. I'm sorry about the naff printing quality. I think the heads on my printer cartridges need to be cleaned. I'm also planning, as mentioned earlier, Hermione's Everyday Socks. I might not do the texture pattern, but I just want to try the actual pattern formula itself. And I also have another shawl lined up, which is another Suvi Simola pattern. She designed the Filtering Daylight that I'm knitting. This is her film strip. And this is actually going to be for my mother-in-law for her birthday. So I have some time, and I'll show you the yarn for that. Actually, no, I'll show it to you now. It's part of my acquisitions, because what isn't? And it's Cascade yarn 220 Superwash Sport in the 873 beige colorway and 813 blue colorway. So these are the 2 colors it's going to be knitting. Perry picked up the colours with me. Blue's one of his mum's favourite colours, so we went with blue and beige. So that will be knit out of that, and I have a pair of 4mm needles hanging out in the bottom of my bag, waiting to be cast on. So those are what I'm planning, and these 3 will come with me to Dubai, as well as my boat trip cowl and the Filtering Daylight shawl. Those are basically going to be what I take with me for the next 2 weeks. Well, I'm actually gone for 11 days. But I figure that's more than enough to keep me going for 11 days. And if not, well, then I've got a problem. Right. Move that basket out of the way. Move swiftly on. Right, so I was going to show this week how I knit, but I haven't actually prepared a sample piece to show you, and this podcast episode is going to go on for freaking forever if I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little piece prepped up, and I will show you next week, in next week's episode, how I knit, how I do the knit stitch, how I purl, I flick. There was Carrie Lynn from Freckled Whimsy on Instagram tagged me in a post to show me how you knit, was the hashtag. And she put up a little clip of her knitting, and she knits continental, which is quite cool. I've always wanted to be able to knit continental, but it's never quite clicked. I can do it fine when I'm doing ferrule with two, but when I'm just doing it with my left hand, my finger doesn't know what to do, and it's just like I end up with like this claw thing going on. It's just my tension's all over the place. So I got Perry to help me film me knitting, and I flick. So I sort of basically do this with I don't let go of the needles as I'm knitting. It's basically the English style equivalent of continental knitting. It's about as fast as you can get with English style knitting. And loads of people commented saying that either they also knit that way, or they knit that way and didn't even realise what it was called. That they wanted to see it slowed down so they could try and like learn how to do it. So I did say I was going to show you guys on this episode how to do it, and I'm really sorry. But like I said, I haven't prepared for it properly. I've been busy packing, but also this episode's already going to be really long. So apologies about that. I will definitely get something prepared to show you next week. And right, moving on to podcasts. There's actually only one podcast I want to talk about this week because I have quite a lot to say about this one, and it's the Sockmatician podcast hosted by Nathan Taylor in the UK. So not only is he another British podcaster, he's also a male podcaster, a knitting podcaster, and he does some amazing double knitting work. I met him at I Knit Fandango just over a week ago now, and he was so lovely. He was so sweet, and he was really, really inspiring to talk to. His podcast, I spent most of last week catching up on his episodes, and a lot of what he said in his first episode actually really resonated with me. There's a lot of similarities in the way that we think about knitting, like 3 or 4 projects at a time. His whole mantra of like one stitch at a time is very similar to why I always tell people. I get people coming up to me saying, "Oh, you know what you've knit is really beautiful," or whatever, but I'm too scared to knit a cardigan or a jumper. Like, it's too intimidating. It's so much work. And I've always been like, if you take a look at any sort of in your mind intimidating pattern and just break it down, look at it step by step. All the stitches that it requires you to do, do you know how to do them? More than likely you do, and if you don't, there are tutorials, plenty of tutorials on YouTube to show you how to do them. And all it is about breaking it down into smaller steps. I mentioned this earlier with my cardigan, breaking it down into small steps that bite size, easily consumable, and you just take it one step at a time. And just like Nathan's mantra, one stitch at a time, just take it in small steps, and you'll get there. And it's not that scary, and it's not that intimidating. And that's kind of how I deal with most things, even if from anything as simple as cleaning the house to tackling my to-do list to packing a suitcase, anything really. Just break it down into small steps. I'm a massive fan of lists and being able to check things off. So if that helps you, you can just break down your project into small sections, and then when you finish each section, you can just tick it off and be like, right, done with that, done with that. It's just a really easy way to go through it. Also, Nathan, I love your green Pink Panther. I think that is the cutest thing that I've probably seen. It's so adorable with holes and all. And I love the Genesis shawl. I think it's amazing. I got to see it in person at the Fibre Festival, and it is so beautiful. It's so gorgeous. It's heavy. It's incredibly heavy, but I guess with 6 skeins of wool mice it would be. It looks like such a fun challenge. I want to learn how to double knit just so that when that pattern is released I can knit it, because yeah, it looks like so much fun. I might be a bit of a I don't know what the word is for it, but I might be a bit crazy for thinking that, but I do think like it'd be a fun challenge to knit that shawl. And yeah, finally, the last thing I want to finish off talking about this podcast is Nathan put out a challenge for anyone who makes project bags to see if anyone can come up with more manly project bags. Now, I came up with an idea for using some of my husband's old shirts that he doesn't wear anymore, not because they're too worn out, but because they don't fit him anymore. He's lost quite a bit of weight recently. We both actually have been trying to lose weight recently, but so some of his shirts are just too loose around the collar, so even if I took them in, they would still look baggy because they don't fit around the collar anymore. So I'm thinking, there's two shirts here, this one for the outside pattern and potentially this for the lining, and I have an idea for how I'm going to do this. So Nathan, I think once I knit up a prototype, I always do this, once I sew up a prototype, I think I'll send you a message and see if you'd be interested in trying it out, because I think it's quite an interesting idea. And like I said, my husband's got quite a few shirts that don't fit him anymore now, so I think I'm gonna have quite a bit of material to play with, and I have a few fun ideas for those. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Right, I'm gonna pause it here and get reset up to do the acquisitions. All right, see you in a bit. Right, well, I'm back now, and I just sort of had to rejig my desk a little bit to be able to easily reach everything, because it's quite a lot this week. First up is this cute little package that came from Danny of Little Bobbins. Thank you so much. We did a little swap whilst I was back in the UK, and she sent me a beautiful little card, some adorable cat toys, little miceys for Derek and Hugo. I haven't given it to them yet because I wanted to show you. They're so cute. Danny, did you make these yourself? Because it's so adorable. So fun. I'm sure they're gonna love it. I'm gonna give it to them after I finish recording. She sent me a bunch of lovely teas to try. So there's calming tea, serene green jasmine, 3 ginger. Yeah, 2 of each of those. That's looking forward to trying those out. She sent me a beautiful rainbow sock blank to try, because she obviously knows me well enough that I love rainbows. I love everything to do with rainbows, and this is a gradient rainbow black is what it's called. If I pull that out a bit, you can see the different colours. So that looks like it'll be so much fun. Like I said, once I figured out my perfect sock numbers, these are going to be knit up pronto. She also sent me some beautifully packaged up minis. I don't want to take them out of the packaging. And they're all labelled with what yarns there are. There's some beautiful yarns in here. Some crazy Zalba ball, some opals, some Nicole C. Mendez opal. I don't know if I said that one. Regia. Rainbows and clouds. And some fondant fibre, which I'm really excited to try actually, because I've been wanting to try some of her yarns, but after all the yarn that I purchased, I could not justify buying more stuff. But next time in the UK, Deb, I'm checking out your yarn. I'm not a spinner, so unfortunately I can't buy any of your gorgeous, I mean I could buy your gorgeous fibres, but I wouldn't know what to do with them. And then Danny also sent me some beautiful fat quarters to try, which are really fun. So one is this fun flower pattern, these cute little hexagons, and then these cute little socks on a line. So sweet. So sweet. So I'm really looking forward to playing around with these, trying these out, and boys can get these now. I've been saving them to show you. And then the next package I wanted to share with you is from Chrissy. She sent this awesome box. Don't worry, it wasn't entirely full, although there is a lot in there. She sent me an awesome box of goodies, and yeah, it's just such a beautifully arranged box. Sorry about the rustling. Let's grab all the main thing. There was some chocolates in here, but I've eaten them already, so sorry. So yes, she also sent me some toys for the boys. It's cute. There was chocolate in here for me, but there was also chocolate in here for Perry. There's a little package wrapped up for him, a little bar of dairy milk, which I gave him and he probably ate. So he loved it. Thank you, Chrissy. A card, which is very sweet. And a set of stitch markers, which I've been dying to use, but I've been trying to keep them in here so they stay all nice, with a stitch together button and some cards that she's had made up from some of her photos. You see there's like a colour scheme going on here. She loves blue. She sent me this awesome notebook, which would be brilliant for design. Some lovely pens. We had a chat and we realised we both really like stationery. And rather hilariously, we pretty much sent each other the exact same things. She also sent me some sticky tabs. So I also sent Chrissy a notebook, some pens and some sticky tabs, although different ones. But it was really funny that we both had picked out the exact same things for each other, or the exact same types of things. And she also sent me a cute little roll of washi tape. Now, I've never actually owned washi tape, so this is my first roll of washi tape, and I'm excited about that. I think if you watch Chrissy's podcast, which is Stitched Together, and if you don't, you totally should. She used to do a lot of sewing, but due to health reasons and stuff, she can't really sit at the sewing machine for long periods of time anymore, so doesn't get much sewing done. And so I offered to make her a project bag as part of the swap, which I'm so happy you loved it. And so in return, she, as part of the package, she sent me some fat quarters to play around with. Again, all very beautifully colour coordinated in the blue theme. So there's this one, which kind of looks like waves. I love this one. This one's so beautiful. And this one, look like little fans. And there's this pattern, which I really like. I like all of them actually. They're beautiful. And this one, which again looks a bit like water or tree bark, depending how you want to look at it. And this one, which looks like a bit like a marbled tie-dyed effect. So I'm going to have so much fun with these. Thank you so much, Chrissy. It's so generous. And then on to the good stuff. She sent me a beautiful skein of baby long legs yarn. This is 50% silk, 50% superwash merino. Oh, look at it. It is so soft. It is so soft. It's called Raspberries and Cream. It's beautiful, sort of deep fuchsia pink colour. Which actually, of all shades of pink, this is probably my favourite colour. So, good job, Chrissy. Love it. And probably my favourite thing in the package, in the box, was she sent me some hand spun. Just so sweet, 'cause she knows I'm not a spinner, and because I made her something, she wanted to send me something that she'd made. And so she sent me some beautiful, beautiful hand spun. And this is merino tencel. It's a DK weight, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is a little over 200 meters altogether. So it's about 220 meters altogether, which is so beautiful. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna make with this. I think it might have to be a hat, like a nice hand spun hat. Anyway, really excited by this package as well. It was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Chrissy, for all the lovely thought that you put into it. And I'm just going to quickly chuck everything back into boxes and get it out of the way. Sorry about the rustling. And then moving on to acquisitions. Now I have, grab it, 2 full bags to show you. I put them back in the iKnit bags just because it was easier to carry it around this way. Right, start with one. Okay, so you guys ready for this? I'm gonna try and do this quickly so it doesn't take too long. I have a 6-ply Regia rainbow colors, and this is 150 grams. It's 375 meters, so it's obviously a sport/DK weight yarn. And these are gonna be some awesome, awesome rainbow socks. I got West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply. I believe, let's say what it is on here. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon. 400 meters in 100 grams. I believe this one was called Pheasant online. Is it the Pheasant colorway? There's no name on here, so there's no actual colourway number on here either, unless it's one of these. But I'm not sure. That's what it looks like. I love the colours. I'm looking forward to knitting that one up. Next up, I have a bunch of Regia. So there is Regia Design Line by Kristen Nicholas. I can't remember what these were called online. So it's 250 gram balls, 210 meters in each. Pretty good. I have some Arnie and Carlos, which I remember telling you guys about a couple of weeks ago. So I think this one was called Summer Nights. Could be wrong. Then I also got this one, and I know this one is called Fall Nights, which I'm really looking forward to. This is probably my favorite out of all of them. Fall Nights, and I don't know if you can see, there's a picture on the side here that shows what it looks like knit up, and this is what the Summer Nights one looks like knit up. Quite similar. Actually, I don't know if it's the same picture. Yeah, no, it's the same picture, but that's generally the stripe pattern. They're sort of designed to come up as like a self-striping Fair Isle type pattern. Then there is another one by Kristen Nicholas. And this one knits up more like that. And that's it for the small balls of Regia. And then I've got some Fortissima Colour Scholler and Stahl. I am so sorry if I've butchered that. I think it's another German brand, I believe. And this is in colour 2410. I can't remember what it was called online, but it's 100 grams, 420 meters. Should be more than enough for a pair of socks, I think. I'm not sure who these will be socks for yet, but good hard wearing socks. And then I also got a more brightly coloured version of the same yarn. So there's the more toned down version and the more rainbowy coloured version. Because yes, I have to buy the rainbow. And then I've got 2 balls of Lang Jawol Magic Degrade. It's their sock yarn. It's 75% virgin wool, 25% polyamide. And these are the colours that I got. Now I saw Kay from the Bakery Bears podcast. She'd gotten a ball of this recently, and she posted a picture of it on Instagram. And she said she was planning on making socks with it. Now, looking at the yarn, I wasn't entirely sure if these would actually be, even though it's got a sock content, like it's merino nylon, not merino, wool and nylon. I wasn't sure, because it's very much, it almost looks like a single ply. I wasn't sure how well this would hold up as socks. But she said it should be okay considering it's nylon, considering it's got quite a high nylon content. So I may give it a go, but I might put in a contrasting heel and toe just for added strength. Oh, you see the gecko? So it's gone up there, the back wall, up there. He just popped into the air vent. Yeah, we have a little gecko that lives in our ventilation system. Every now and again he pops out into my craft room. And I just spotted him there at the back wall. So if you didn't catch that, maybe rewind back and have another look. That's funny. Yes, Lang Jawol Magic Degrade. And the last few balls in this bag. Lana Grossa. I've got some Lana Grossa to try. Another German brand, I believe. So this was one of the Peak range colours. I'm not sure if that means it's glow in the dark, actually. I don't know, I didn't actually check. What's that saying? You? I don't know. Is someone who speaks German able to tell me, is this one of their glowing ones? Or something? Be interesting to find out. And then I got one from their Chess range, which I really like these colours. I don't know what it is, but blue and orange together just really kind of make me happy. And one from their India range, which I think is beautiful colours as well. So I have a lot of socks to knit, if you couldn't tell already. So yeah, I stocked up on sock yarns, and I bought quite a few different sort of commercial sock yarn brands to try, because because there are so many out there, and I'm not entirely sure which ones I'll prefer over the others, or if there are any differences really, other than like the colorways and patterns that come up with them. So I'm excited to try these out, figure out which ones I like best. That's the first bag down, next bag. And starting up with Osterman Step. So I believe this was in the Ennis colorway. It's number 2109. Actually, my friend Mel's already knit up a pair of socks out of these, but when I saw the pictures I realised I'd already ordered this. So fun. And the Osterman Step comes with the aloe vera and jojoba oil already in the yarn. So it should make for soft socks. And there's this one, which I think I might use this for the toddler socks. I'm not entirely sure yet. And this one. And then I think that's all the, oh no, there's this one as well, this one. It's like fun sort of animal print type pattern coming up on it. Oh, and one more. I didn't realise I got quite so much Osterman Step. This one's quite fun colours as well. I like the look of this one. Then I got a bunch of solids. So I got 2 of the 50 grams of the Drops Fable sock yarn. All of these are pretty standard sock yarn blends, 75% wool, 25% nylon. And this is like a general sort of heathered grey look. And these solids are mostly going to be used for contrasting heels and toes. Some yellow regia. The only thing I forgot to get was a solid sort of creamy white colour. And this is West Yorkshire Spinners in a beautiful turquoise. Another regia in like a deep purple. And then I also got some Lion Brand sockies to try, and these are also finished with aloe vera. So I got one in a green apple colour, and one in, where's the colourway name? Circus Peanut. So these are the solids. Again, rainbow colours, I'm just missing a red. Yes, so these will mostly be used for contrasting heels and toes, I believe. So I think that looks quite nice. It sort of evens out the busyness of the patterned yarns, and also means I don't have to worry about disrupting the pattern striping or whatever else when I'm knitting them up. So those are all my commercial sock yarns that I bought. I think I counted at one point. I have enough to make about 20 odd pairs of socks now, which is crazy. And I already showed you the Cascade 220 that the Superwash Sport yarn that I'm using for my mother-in-law's shawl for her birthday. Now I'm gonna wrap things up now because it's already going on for quite a while, but just to say that things coming up is, like I already mentioned last week, things are gonna get quite busy. I'm going to Dubai for 11 days now. When I get back, Perry's leaving for his course. By the time he gets back from his upcoming classes, we're gonna have to go to Saudi Arabia. Well, I'm gonna have to go with him to Saudi Arabia at some point soon after to finalize and finish off my Saudi visa residency, because then off the back of that I can get my Bahrain residency and become completely official over here. And we're likely gonna hit Ramadan soon after that, or around the same time. Ramadan starts, or is due to start around the 18th of June, so less than a month from now. Which isn't a problem. I've never had bad experience with Ramadan in the Middle East. In Dubai, it's always been perfectly fine. If anything, I've loved it. It's been so, because a lot of people go away for Ramadan, So it's really quiet, the roads are quiet, it's just peaceful and lovely, and there are no crowds, it's just easy to get stuff done. Obviously you have to plan around when you want to eat if you're not fasting, because a lot of restaurants and places that serve food won't be open. There are a few that do stay open during Ramadan, but usually you have to find out beforehand, or it's not necessarily that easy to know. There are obviously some exceptions. If you're pregnant or if you have small children, then they make exceptions if you're going to eat in public. To be honest, it's just more about being respectful, going back to the whole respect in the cultures of where you are thing. And then at the beginning of July, I still need to book my tickets, but I'm waiting on other people to let me know exact details. I need to book my tickets to go to Turkey in July. We were planning don't know if I've mentioned this before or not, but I have quite a large family on my mum's side. My mum's the youngest of 14 children, so me and my brother are actually the youngest out of all of our cousins. We've got, I think I counted once, we have about 36 just first cousins alone on my mum's side, some of whom I've never actually met before, if you can believe that. But they're spread all over the place. So we still have a lot who are still in Iran, but a lot are over in America now and in other places. So we're all pretty spread out. And we were planning on having a family reunion type event in Turkey this summer, but plans sort of changed relatively recently, and one of my cousins who was engaged to get married decided to just have his wedding at the same time whilst everyone was together, because it made sense, which is fine. But now it's just meant that we're waiting for him to let us know exactly where he's going to have his wedding, so we can all sort of book our holiday, as it were. So yeah, a lot of traveling coming up in the next couple of months, which, as stressful as it can be, we're trying to make sure the cats have we have someone to look after the cats, and thankfully we do, at least for the next couple of weeks while I'm away. And it's I feel very fortunate. I love to travel. Perry loves traveling as well. We're both very fortunate that we've been able to travel as much as we have over the years, and I think it's also because we put a lot of emphasis on travel in our lives. I guess we kind of prioritize travel and travel experiences over other things, which, like I said, at the moment we don't have children, we don't have any sort of major I guess we do have some major financial commitments, but we don't have, major things holding us back. The only thing really that holds us back from travel are the cats, really. We don't really ever go away for longer than 2 weeks. I don't think we've ever been away longer than 2 weeks since having the cats. If we ever wanted, and we both would like to at some point to do some long-term traveling, but if we were ever to do that, we'd have to find someone to look after the boys. Danny, I'm looking at you because you already talked about stealing them at some point. But so if you're watching this, if Perry and I ever do decide to do some long-term travel, I might be calling you up to look after the boys for me, which my only concern would be whether or not I'd get them back afterwards. But yeah, so like I said, we both like to travel, and I think it's quite important to us as well. So yeah, we're also very fortunate in that we can travel, and being where we are, it's quite a good sort of hub to travel around to places around the Middle East. And so we do enjoy it, and so it's going to be quite a busy couple of months coming up. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we have plans to go, well, I have plans to join Perry on his trip to New York in September. I'm not sure of the dates yet, nothing's been finalised, but once I know, I'll mention it, and if there's anyone around who wants to catch up, it'll be lovely to see you. And I think that is it for today. I have another bit to film for next week's episode, because I still have some acquisitions to show you. Go figure. But I'm going to film it now, so I have the footage ready for next week, because I'm not going to be lugging all that stuff with me to Dubai just to show you on camera from there. So I'll film it now and I'll insert it into next week's episode. So thank you for watching. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm sorry if this is another long episode, because I'm sure it will be. And yeah, the only thing I have to say with long episodes, like I quite like watching long podcasts myself, but I tend to break it up into smaller sections. So I'll watch a bit, and then if I have to get up and go do something, I'll just pause and come back to it. So it might take me 4 hours to watch a 1 hour long podcast, but I get to it because I just sort of stop and start watching as and when I have the time to watch it, and I always enjoy them. I do enjoy the longer podcasts as well. As I think it was Kristen of the Youngasm podcast said, it's like sitting down with a friend. And that's very much what I want this podcast to be. I want it to be like sitting down, catching up with a friend. And because I kind of see all you guys as friends, and that's kind of how I feel about it. So like I've said before, you can find me on Ravelry, on Instagram, with the show notes are on the blog, and definitely come join the Ravelry group. Links for all of that are down below in the description box on YouTube. And yeah, please come in, join along. We're gonna have the knit along start soon for this shawl pattern. I'm gonna have it ready to release in a couple of weeks, probably after I get back from Dubai. And yeah, so I'm really excited. Sign-ups are available now if you want to get the same yarn that I use for this, and there's a link for that in the specific thread for it on the Ravelry group, so be sure to check that out. And yes, so now I need to go film next week's segment and finish packing for my trip. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.